Loaded. Right, we've recorded.
Oh, what's that that's come up?
Good morning, Harris Academy. My name is Mr Doherty and I'm joined by my co-presenter,
Mr Epps.
and we are joined by our producer as ever. Good morning, Ava. How are you today?
Good morning, sir. I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff. And we have got our assistant producer in Learning the Ropes today, which is Darcy Clark, Year 11, Geography student. How are you, Darcy?
I'm very good, thank you.
Nice
sir.
morning to you. So, in case you hadn't noticed, we are currently sat a little bit different today.
Side of the table, sir.
The other side of the table, because we have a very special guest today, and that is the wonderful Mr Epps. Good morning, Mr Epps. How are you?
I'm great. Honoured.
Honoured to be
Honoured
here.
to be here.
So we have brought in Mr Epps because we'll get to that in a minute. But this is us going cross-curricular. Is that what you'd say? Can you
we're
see
fine
Mr
now.
Rickenberg, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You keep leaning forward.
Sorry, it's because I'm nervous.
My podcast is much too
We've
short.
got,
Remember
yeah,
that.
it's not vanity. We've got royalty on here today, so this is I'm nervous. So yeah, what are we talking about today?
First of all, again, sir, you missed it as you did last week.
Yeah.
What do you think about our cups?
Yes.
You made these this time. What you made for me?
So I've made you it's Kenko Gold. We were having this discussion last week.
I think it's indulgence is what it's called.
Gold Indulgence. We've got Kenko Gold Indulgence. Do you know what? I've had a bit of milk today.
Yeah, you've broken away. Haven't you?
Yeah, I had a bit of milk. I'll be honest as well. I'm actually digressing slightly. I had McDonald's last night as well.
How many portions of fries did you get?
They gave me a 3 portion of chips. I had 2 portions of chips, but they were just out of the fryer, really hot. But we'll get to why I had McDonald's in a second. So I'm having Kenko Gold with milk and hot water. You've got the same as me. So has Mr Epps, but you both have a sugar in yours.
Yeah.
What are you drinking this morning, Ava?
I've got fudge brownie flavour fridge, not fridgy.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
Fridge Friday.
Are there other brands available?
Of course there are.
There are. And Darcy, what are you drinking today?
I have got a juice burst apple.
Lovely. Look at this. We've got these drinks are all around getting more and more expensive.
Like a tab at Tesco.
Okay, excellent. So what's first then on our list?
Shout
Producer?
out, isn't it?
Shout out.
Shout out.
Who's first? Who's first on the list?
Open.
Open evening. That's why you had a McDonald's just today.
That's right, McDonald's yesterday. So we had our Year 6 open evening,
Yeah.
didn't we? Where all our departments have to, basically, as Mr Max said, put it, sell our house. Thought we did pretty well last night.
Yeah.
So we shout out Miss Hassia.
Yeah.
Her and Miss Middleton set it up, so they deserve a shout out. It went really well. I think it was always paints us in a good light. How did history get on in open evening, Mr Epps?
Yeah, it was great. Came down, visited you as well.
Yeah,
It was
good.
alright.
I think people
Good
put a
night,
lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
MFL always have nice food.
It's been a nice for the second year out of 2 where I've not been frosty to the history department as well.
Yeah.
They're quite nice to each other. So
Yeah,
We're all one humanities team, isn't that? That's what we tell each other.
Now we are a humanities team. So we massive shout out to everybody who helped at opening last night. It was a huge
and
success.
our helpers as well. So with Darcy
Darcy was one of our helpers.
was a great helper yesterday. She did a fantastic job.
This is in geography.
This is
Ashley.
geography. Ashley Amy, who is one of our year 13s and helps us out all the time. Krista in year 8, Eva in year 8, and I can't remember the last one off the top of my head. She's an 8P.
Right. It's not Will. Oh,
No,
Rose.
Rose. Can't remember her name.
Right. If it
I'll
comes.
remember it and then I'll put it in. I'll put it in the notes.
And who helped you in history?
Yeah, Dobby Das.
Yeah.
Who else do we have? With Isla, Chefcat.
Yeah.
Bethany Hinsby, year
Oh,
year
nice.
11 now.
Year 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Bang.
Yeah.
Who else did we have in there?
Miley.
Yeah.
So you had quite a few
Quite a
helpers.
few.
I
Yeah.
will say Kelly Nichols spent a lot of time in history. As a geographer, I found that quite a little bit disrespectful.
Well,
but
Yeah.
And we supported him during his DJ set as well.
Exactly.
Mr Nichols. But there is your shout out. Is that a shout out for Kenny?
yeah, and the warning.
Mixed into one.
Yeah.
Right. There we
He
go.
came to the table when I went into the history room.
Did he?
Yeah, he knew he should have been in
He
there.
knew. Anyway, what is next? Who's next on our shout out list?
Year 13s.
Good trip, that wasn't
We had a good time, didn't
Yeah,
we?
it was
So
good.
where did you go?
Whitstable.
Whoa.
And
the Kent Riviera.
yeah, and I didn't crash minibus this time.
I should start.
Yeah, so
Okay.
exactly. I went.
I was holding on. I was
Yeah.
holding on, weren't I?
Yeah.
How was he part?
He took me to the car park.
to show you where he done it.
Yeah, he had flashbacks.
Yeah,
I had a
that
punch up
was
with it.
that was one of
Literally.
that the less said about that.
Yeah.
Better, I think.
And
Have
then
we mentioned that in the podcast? We've asked about
If you haven't, you have now.
Yeah, no, because I don't think we mentioned it on podcast because we did the Whitstable podcast in the minibus that I broke, where we recorded our faces for the first
Was
time.
that day?
Yeah.
Right.
And then also all the year 13s were very, very well behaved and they got all their data, so that was very good. And yeah, just around, thank you very much. And also thank you to Miss Oakley for driving the other minibus.
So, yeah.
So, and Miss Duffy, who did a great job as well.
Brilliant.
And
Two different beaches as well, didn't
and
they?
went to Tankerton as well.
Oh, did you get
It
to
was
see
nice,
that as
yeah, it was
well?
nice down there.
Lovely.
We've got
So
to
we're
take
gonna-
the
and
ladies down there as well.
I didn't take the 11th, so we're going to go to Whitstable next Thursday. You two on the trip next Thursday?
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, wicked. So there are our shout-outs done. Any more shout-outs? Was that us?
Lieutenant Petchy.
Oh, Lieutenant Petchy. Why is he getting a shout-out? This is you, this.
Yeah, because of the Harry Potter trip. Seemed like an absolute roaring success. You
Yeah.
both went on it, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was really good.
It was
so
really
good.
good, yeah.
It was amazing.
I'm
Almost
so
missed the
I've never
second
seen it, you know.
Yeah, almost missed the second part because there was slight issues with the dinner or something.
Yeah, they went out for Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said you can order whatever you want, or something like that. He said go and we've got to like order whatever you wanted. I think you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but loads of people paid cash, and that's what slowed us down.
Right.
Oh, just having to
Yeah.
pay individually, right. Oh, but at least you got to go out and have a nice
Yeah,
meal
lobster
together and stuff.
I reckon some of them chuck
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Petchy's paying. Anyway, all right. So Mr. Petchy, Lieutenant Petchy gets a shout out. I'm very jealous for that. I really wanted to go and see that.
Oh, it was really
I
good.
It
was
was so
jealous.
good.
And you tried to get onto the Back to the Future one.
Oh,
And
he
he
was
said-
like, yeah, there might be a ticket for you. You got to make your own way there.
No. He said the opposite. He said we can get you on the bus, but you have to buy your own ticket. Imagine that.
Sat the other side of the
Yeah.
thing, waving across to everyone else.
Yeah, behaviour management's going well. Mr. Petchy. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yes.
So,
Content now.
Right, let's get stuck in because we are a little bit tight for time today because you two have intervention for drama, right?
Yes.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
The Industrial Revolution.
And that is where
Mr.
this
Petty,
man,
yeah. This is where this man comes.
this is where this man comes in. We're actually privileged. The Industrial Revolution, Mr. Epps, talk to us.
Wow, they tell me I'm the expert in it, but
Yeah.
let's
Yeah,
not get
yeah.
our hopes up too high.
Well, we'll start off, sir, because we talk about it a little bit in geography.
Yeah.
The topic we don't have so much anymore, but we used to talk about it quite a lot, didn't we? So we just want to start off with obviously a big moment in sort of like European and world history, the Industrial
yeah.
Revolution. UK probably one of the trailblazers in it. So when would you say the Industrial Revolution started?
It's one of those ones where you can't pin it down to a specific date, but we tend to teach it sort of from approximately 1750 onwards and ending. I usually go right the way through to about 1900.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that large span of years, because you've got so much innovation and technological and urban changes happening throughout the period, health as well, transportation. There's so much happening in the country, and you're right, the UK was the trailblazer in that.
Yeah.
You know, other countries were still agrarian by the time we get to 1900, but the UK does lead the way in that. So you've got the growth of the factory system, you get things like canals, the first steam railways, all of these things sort of coming together at the same time through these technological innovations, and the country basically changes
Yeah, completely.
completely. Yeah.
Would you say is it scientific sort of breakthroughs or like engineering breakthroughs and then started sort of like the revolution ever slightly? Because like you say, it was agrarian to begin with.
And
So
when we say agrarian, what do we mean by that for those of us who
Yeah.
don't know?
it's like farmers.
Yeah,
and stuff.
farming.
Yeah,
Farming. Yeah, exactly.
We talk about the growth of the city quite a lot, and it's sort of like it was farmers to begin with, and then people start trading stuff, and then they realise they can make money out of trading stuff, and then they want to make more of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they think, let's just build a big house where we can stick those people in, and then
Exactly.
we've got to move people closer to their sort of
So
thing, isn't it?
essentially, in 1750 and before, you've got the majority of people living in the countryside. You have what are called cottage industries, right? So people are making textiles in their house to earn a bit of extra money to supplement their farming. That's how the majority of people are living and getting by. And then, as you say, and if you're asking me how I think it started, I think the empire. Right?
Yeah.
The
Right.
empire has a lot
Yeah.
to say, you know, and a lot to answer for, because you had all of these goods coming in from all over the world. Now, there's a very dark side to the empire, but if you want to know why Britain sort of was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution, you've got all of these goods coming back, fueling Britain's economic growth. You've got all these raw materials coming in. That's sort of what lights the fire underneath the Industrial Revolution.
That's a really interesting point. That
That
you
is,
don't really
yeah.
think about that, do you? The ability to having all the amazing ships that we spoke about before,
Yeah.
to bring over textiles, materials, raw materials. That's really interesting. That allowed us to then start actually developing them.
Yeah, so how would you say, because we're going to talk about sort of like the impact of it, and sort of like again the economic impact of it in terms of economic growth and stuff. But what would you say, or how would you say it made life easier for people in Britain?
Well, I think you've got to look more to arguably you've got to look to more of the emerging middle classes, because there wasn't really a middle class before the Industrial Revolution. You've got to look to the middle and upper classes in terms of making life easier. That's where your big opportunities are coming in. The working classes, the people that are moving to the cities and working in the factories, they're not having a great life, right? You know, these factories are dangerous, you haven't got the health and safety you've got today, they're noisy, that you've got children working in them as well, because the families need, there's very little poverty, so the families need their kids to be working in there as well.
There's no welfare state at that point.
No, there isn't really a welfare state right up until after World War II, not in the way we know it today. But you've got a situation where it's the middle and upper classes that are benefiting more, because they're opening these factories, they've got their workers on low wages contained in one space, so it's easy to sort of control things like dissent and things like that. That's not to say there wasn't dissent and there wasn't things like strikes or rebellions, but I think if you want to look for how life is made easier, that's where you're going to be looking more towards, rather than the actual working classes who are sort of really living day by day in these slums that are emerging in these growing cities. And the slums, you have multiple families living in one house.
The owners and the investors into the factories that are reaping the rewards of it, really.
Yeah. So that's why. So when you say it's really interesting, it's where I lived in Manchester, in a place called Whalley Range, because Trafford was where all the industry was. A lot of the mills were. Whalley Range is a bit further out. The roads there, the houses are massive, and they were all German mill owners and European mill owners built the big houses with the wide streets, and then you go a few roads down, and then you've got rows of terraces next to it. So that's where the workers were all living in them cramped, poor conditions. So really, it was more the emerging middle class that benefited the most.
In my opinion.
Yeah, because we were talking, if we start then, moving on to the impact of it, like you're saying, the Industrial Revolution, so the way we teach it, I suppose, makes it sound like it was just all like a positive thing. Like it's the growth of different industries, everyone's making more money, but in reality it's the economy that's increasing, not necessarily the distribution of that.
Exactly.
Of that wealth.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
And in the cities were dirty, filthy, it was
awful.
unsafe.
So I think they say like even London had a higher population density then than it does now.
Right.
Because when we're talking about people moving to the cities, we're talking about urbanisation, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
That was the UK's version of urbanisation, really, wasn't it? When with all these major cities and stuff coming up. Yeah.
Right. So then sort of the problems then? What sort of problems start occurring? So we've got the setup of these inner city areas, cramped housing conditions, the mill owners and the sort of emerging middle class making the money.
Yeah.
What's happening to the people that are working? What sort of conditions are we looking at there, do you reckon, Mr Epps?
Well, the people that work in the factories.
In the factories and stuff. The sort of normal sort of working class people, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful when generalising, because there would be, like you say, people who did argue that they had it better, but generally you're looking at long working hours. Like I mentioned before, they could even be going to work with their kids, because there were jobs specifically for children, not just in factories but also in the mines. More factories and more things like coal to power them. Yeah, exactly. So, and as we mentioned before, housing itself could be cramped, multiple sort of people living and sleeping in one room as well. So it could be tough. But then there were also a lot of Victorians that were proud of the Industrial Revolution, like you sort of alluded to a moment ago. You had a great exhibition set up, and funded, and really envisioned by the royal family, by Prince Albert, to sort of showcase all of these new, to showcase the empire and to showcase the technological advancements. So I think there was certainly a pride there as well.
Really proud of what they've created, even though it doesn't.
But at the time, they probably couldn't see the problems that we would see now, like the cramped housing conditions. They're like, well, you're earning money, you can feed your family, you can, we're getting everything's improving, So maybe us looking back retrospectively, we're like, oh, this was bad, that was bad. At the time,
we talk about the consequences of rapid urbanisation in different parts of the world, Africa, Asia, and stuff, and we do forget we went through the exact same thing.
We did the exact same thing and had any problems. So we spoke about this before we did this, didn't we? That then the rise of diseases and stuff like cholera, but then they figured out how to stop cholera. So at the same time,
revolution for that as well.
Yeah, so the problems were occurring due to cramped housing conditions, but maybe had they not occurred, these fixes, cures, and he's
innovation
really
comes under stress, don't it?
exactly.
Well, that's a really compelling argument.
Yeah.
You know.
That you need these problems for you to be able to fix them. Like the guy who figured out that cholera was a waterborne disease and turned that tap off in
Yeah.
central London.
That's it.
He changed. Well, how
Literally
many,
one tap turning
he
off.
turned that one tap off and changed everything. But it took him a long time to figure it out, and they were doing all these different tests, and he was heading into these areas, and then he realised.
He realised the common link. They're all drinking from this one.
Drinking from the one tap. It's
Yeah.
really, really, really interesting. I can't think of the guy's name is.
No, I can't now. But
But yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, cool. So we've done the impacts of it and sort of the causes of it.
Yeah.
That's really interesting about the empire. That's
Yeah.
I
I
feel
think
like that's something we need to look at.
We
when
need.
teaching.
This is what I liked what he said there. When this is why I think I like history as much as I do. Where he said that's one sort of compelling argument because there's
Yeah.
going to be other people's opinions in there as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So for the UK in general, if we think it's sort of geographically and economically now, that industrial revolution moved people from the primary sector to the secondary sector.
Yeah, this is
Right.
where we could have sort of.
So
changed.
it was our industrial revolution, and we really see that as a pivotal moment in UK's economic history, where people before, like you say, were agrarian. The most people work in the primary sector, open up factories, start making things, and move
Yeah.
ourselves into the secondary. And when you start making things and manufacturing things, you can then start to sell those things.
Yeah.
So without the industrial revolution, or without industrial revolutions in general, you don't get the secondary industry, you don't then get the tertiary industry, and then we do not get the economy that we have today. We don't have $3.7 trillion
without that.
without the industrial
Yeah,
revolution.
and it's really interesting. So like you say, you talk about the secondary sector where the factory works start making things. More people moving into the city, meaning more people in the city, which the Victorians were really good at, start building schools. You've got loads of people living in an area like, well, hang on a minute, we need to start looking after these people, so we build a hospital.
Yeah.
Then you open a greengrocers, a butcher, and it gives rise to that tertiary sector, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Which
I
without
think-
any of that secondary sector and all the people living together, you're not going to have those pieces of infrastructure that we
I
need
think
to
the industrial
survive.
revolution is an interesting thing because some people probably at the time were fuming that the farming sort of like culture of the UK or the heritage of farming and stuff in the UK was disappearing. But after the industrial revolution and after we lost the need because of the global shift, we lost the need for the industry, the factories and stuff. That changed, and because of how dominant the industrialisation was in the UK, that change from secondary to tertiary was quite devastating,
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't it? And we call that structural economic change, and that is a structural economic change between primary and secondary. And then we learn about it in A-level with Birmingham, don't we?
The impacts that it had in certain parts of the UK.
So with Birmingham,
profound.
some places in Birmingham were the most deprived in the UK because of the reasons that you said, the cramped housing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So they said, look, we need to change this. This isn't healthy for them anymore. So then they tried to change to a tertiary-based economy, and people just didn't have the transferable skills. So you're trying to get someone who's working with their hand down a mine, breathing in all this horrible stuff, but they've been trained to do that all their life, and all of a sudden you're offering them a job in Woolworths.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a big shift, and people can't
And it
make
just
those
led to the
changes.
decline of the entire town. So I would tell the year 12s to watch Billy Elliot,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe not the full Monty, but you know, but it's like, but those
Same
films,
idea.
it's the same idea, isn't
Yeah.
it? And like Brass Off is the other one. You know, they're real great films that just highlight how you've just had generations of people mining.
These two need to get their education. So.
Right, so we are going to have to stop there with Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, get the laptop.
He's going to take the laptop over. Right, our producers have to go because they've got drama intervention. Do not be late because Miss Lake will kill us. Thank you for your time this morning.
The guy, Ava's brought it up for us, very kind.
Have a wonderful weekend, you two.
John Snow.
You too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
John, so John Snow was the person who turned the tap off and
Tap off,
stopped
yeah.
all the live people dying from cholera.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right.
All right, so let me get the order sheet. So we are on. So that's our stuff for Industrial Revolution. I thought Mr Epps, I thought that was wicked.
I just love your perspective on it. Brilliant.
It's
Yeah,
fascinating
amazing.
stuff, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
Both
really
from a
is.
historical and
Yeah,
geographical
that was
perspective.
really, really good. Okay, so what are we
The
on?
news now, what we say?
The news. What did you want to talk about first? You
Right.
wanted to talk about.
I think we've actually been praised for this.
Who were?
Mr Maxton and stuff. We almost did the when we talked about Ukraine and stuff. We almost did the. We did, didn't we? What did we do? The Russia-Ukraine. We had to do the same.
Oh,
didn't we?
gosh,
That's
yeah,
right.
we did the,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was quite
It's Graham asked us to do.
Yeah, that was when it first sort of
Yeah.
sparked. wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I had to then put together a Palestine-Israel one, which then never got used. So that's a waste of my time. But I think we've got to keep up to date with this. So the
And we're not afraid to touch upon some pretty
No.
sensitive topics.
the Israel war is starting to change a little bit, and they've actually announced that they're moving into phase 2.
Right.
Now, what phase 2 means, I'm not sure. But yesterday, it was either yesterday or I think it was Tuesday. There was news coming out of. He's absolutely thrilled. Look at him. There was news coming out of. Lebanon.
Yeah.
That there, for some reason, people who were part of the group, the terrorist group Hezbollah, were their pages were exploding.
But I don't understand how this has happened.
Right. So what happened is they ordered a bulk amount of these pages.
Right.
So they were worried about their mobile phones getting tapped. Right.
To communicate.
So they bought these pages to communicate with each other, and they got a mass order. I think it was from Taiwan. But what's happened is, allegedly, we actually don't know. No one's claimed responsibility for this, right? But whoever's got it, whoever's responsible for this, has intercepted the pages, put loads of explosives in them, and then they've just been delivered to Lebanon.
So intercepted
The package,
the
yeah.
package.
Well, someone's literally taken the book because it's not
Because
something quickly, is it?
Yeah, that's not something that takes some serious planning.
Yeah.
But then also, there must be intelligence to get that in the first place. And then so all of a sudden these pages just started exploding. There was really sad stories where it was like their child had it and was playing with it and then it exploded. Some of them were in like a busy market and it's exploded. But they're trying to decide whether it's targeted attacks or whether it is just an attack. And then yesterday, their walkie-talkies started exploding as well. So whatever's going on in Lebanon is
very scary.
Is very scary, yeah, and it could be the start of a bigger war. The leader of Hezbollah has said that they're going to be retaliating. They've blamed Israel. Israel haven't claimed responsibility for it. So I'm not going to, on my little podcast, I'm going to start.
I'm not going to speculate.
I'm not going to start our little podcast. I don't think we're going to start speculating who was in charge of it. So interesting what's going on geopolitically. It's fascinating for our topic of power and borders and stuff. It just is absolutely wild.
It really is. Right, okay, what's next on the news? We've said Englishness in today's news, which I think fits quite, well into our topic.
And I'm actually going to ask what the historical perspective is on this. So, we are in the midst of a Conservative leadership race. The next person who's going to take over from Rishi Sunak in the Conservative race, and we've had two very interesting opinions from the two people that are running for it. First of all, from Kemi Badenoch, she's a nominee, and she said something interesting that a lot of people have kicked off about, which is that she was born into the middle class, and we're talking about classes and stuff earlier, but she moved down into the working class because she worked in McDonald's over the summer, right? And what she's saying, therefore, is that I think what she meant was that she can sort of like relate because she's worked in amongst them and stuff.
In amongst them.
Right. Okay. Because she's worked in sort of amongst those those people. Because she's worked in amongst the working class, or what she feels is the working class, she can relate to them, right? But then I was listening to the radio and people were like, you can't be working class if you've got a get out of jail free card. Do you know what I mean? So then going back to, and I was having an interesting story about whether David Beckham is still working class. And they were saying, yes, he is.
I think.
But his children aren't.
No, he is.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's almost like, is it where your roots are, or is it, can you transfer?
Yeah.
So, and what, like, just because you financially transfer those roots and sort of, and again, class and stuff, so it's a difficult topic to talk about, but it also comes with like certain morals and ways of life, and I bet you I don't know, do you reckon David Beckham still goes to his mum's for like Sunday lunch when he comes?
No, he does.
Do you see what I mean? Like, is that not that only working class people do that?
No, but you've got
that idea that there's loads of kids running around in a house and they're all sort of crammed in having lunch together. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
They were trying to decide what working class is, and is it that you have to work to get by, and is middle class where you might not have to work to get by, and is like upper class where you don't have to work at all to get by. Do you know what I mean? So it's
almost subjective, isn't it? How do you determine class
and maybe nowadays as well. Like when you're talking about like the Industrial Revolution, it kind of feels like it's a bit more definitive.
Yeah.
Whereas now, there's been like self-made millionaires and people can like the way society has changed. Maybe it's not as black and white like that.
Yeah, like new money versus old money.
You see that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just someone might have a job in the city who came from a really working class background, earn an absolute fortune, and you've also got people who just inherit wealth.
So
And
I think those that inherit wealth are not they're not working class, they'll be middle class.
Yeah, but then a lot of people who inherit big piece of land, have quite cash poor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, tied up.
Do you know, a lot of it's,
assets,
so yeah, so it's that's a really interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
that's for
And the
another
other element of it was then the other conservative person said that Englishness is under threat, right? And it's just interesting to figure out what you. I was going to pose the question to you because I actually don't think I have the answer. How would you describe what Englishness is? So I think it's really difficult. Because I think it's an easy thing to say, it's a harder thing to explain.
It's a much harder thing to explain.
I'd like, who was it, Robert Jenrick? I'd like him to explain it to me.
Yeah, because I think he's talking about, because the route that they're going down is migration's causing a problem. That's the route they're going down, I can only assume, right?
Yeah.
But can you really say there's ever really been, really historically,
But we
a
don't
100% English person?
No.
Because we're made up of all sorts. Aren't we?
Yeah,
We're
You have
just-
the Anglo-Saxons who were sort of Germanic, and then you have the Normans who were French. So
Yeah,
you know
all the
you know,
Vikings and stuff.
the Viking. So migration, immigration's always been a
Yeah.
part
So,
of our
so,
culture.
so then, if they're heading down that path of saying like migration's a problem, is Englishness because it's basically created a
Yeah,
country we
and,
know
it was,
today.
and the woman was like,
Being the fact that we are an island and people have come
yeah.
for
the
however many
women that
years.
was on there was like, Englishness to me is someone who likes a beer. It's someone that isn't afraid to say what they want to say and stuff like that. And it was
So
in-
does that come back
yeah.
to stereotypes?
Yeah.
then?
Yeah, that comes back to, and also I would say that English people are quite the opposite. I think
Yeah.
English people don't say what they want to say.
Yeah, and I think I don't think asking English people is the best people to ask about what's English. But if you ask other countries what English is to them, I reckon they would give us a better answer.
Yeah,
'cause
but I
they see it
think
from
you're
the
right. I
outside.
think it just leads to just stereotyping people.
It is
We all like a
interesting,
cup of
yeah.
tea.
And that's what there's the whole Wikipedia articles I think on what Englishness means
Yeah.
to other cultures, but it does come down to stereotypes. But the Conservatives have always had this interesting thing about Englishness. I think back even to like when Michael Gove was Education Secretary, he changed the way history is taught. Now we have to, by law, teach British history at GCSE and A level. So they've always had this sort of thing about
Like the Tudors and stuff like that, you got to go into. and
well,
stuff like
whatever, yeah, so you've got the national curriculum, but then when you get to Key Stage 4, just some aspects, so it might be, you know, it might be early, it could be, most people do Elizabeth I at GCSE, and then at A level you've got more, so we do, well, Mr Epps just changed it over to a new topic, but we did used to do the Tudors, because Miss Sivia, shout out to Miss Sivia, she's doing well in her new role.
Yeah, she loved the Tudors, did
She loved the Tudors, loved a bit of Henry, so that was her remit.
Nice. All right, good. That's really good. Do you know what we haven't got?
What?
Do you know, can you think what we've forgotten?
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
I was wild to put a wiki fact on YouTube.
Yeah, the wild one was because we were talking about Sri Lanka and India, and
Yeah.
that they.
Should we do this as the fact? 'Cause
Yeah,
I think
Sri
Wild deserves a
Lanka.
shout out.
Yeah, Wild does deserve a shout out. He's going on the trip on our trip.
Daniel Martin.
Yeah,
Oh,
great guy. Great geographer, loves it as well. He said that the India and Sri Lanka were connected only 7,000 years ago, and only because of sea level rises from the end of the last ice age were they ever disconnected. I think even at really low tide, I think Top Gear did it, where it was actually possible to drive like a specialised car across the.
Really? So say it again. So since the Holocene, which
Since
is
the Holocene, so
since
that's
the start of the
Holocene,
Holocene.
12,500 years ago. Sri Lanka, at the beginning of the Holocene, Sri Lanka was part of India,
Right.
and then only 7,000 years ago, because of global warming and the ice caps melting, it became disconnected about 7,000 years ago.
Really, so it flooded it. Yeah, it's really
So that's why
interesting.
people from Sri Lanka are quite similar sort of ethnically to people in India.
Oh,
And also, it's also why the religions and stuff are different there as well, because of that separation.
that's amazing. That's really interesting. Okay, so the last piece of thing we will do today is the weather, even though this is not
Weather
a
forecast, so.
weather forecast.
Right,
So
today we've
looking
got.
out there, it's definitely no
We
CD.
hit this morning.
No clear blues out there today.
Almost
It's
felt
cloudy.
smoky this morning. Weird.
Yes.
Then
It's the
we've got-
remnants left of opening. Smouldering.
Then we've got should clear up later today. 21 degrees. I can't deal with
It's
that.
warm though. Yesterday was hot.
Yeah.
Open evening was warm. Having a blazer on for
was.
open evening, it was just like,
Throwing all the windows open.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was hot.
Sunday. Whoa.
So hold on. what-
700. Thunderstorms.
Oh, so thunder. So Saturday should be
Thundery showers.
22
and a gentle
degrees
breeze.
Saturday.
22 degrees Saturday. 20 degrees Sunday, and then it slowly starts to slowly cool down as we get to the end of next week. So next podcast should be 14 degrees.
well, we need it to cool down a little bit. This heat's no good. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mr Epps. I know you're a busy man. We have absolutely loved having you on, and I'm sure our listeners will agree. This has been a very informative podcast. So
Ready?
have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for your
You
time,
too.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
No advert,
No advert. But...
no sound. There he is.
Right, nice
Cheers,
one.
Mr Epps. Thank you so much.
No worries.
There we go.
That was good.
That was really good. Right, let's get this back together. Mr Epps, if you need to go, mate, crack on.
That's all right.
That was good.